Welcome back to Off the Monstah. My name is Derek. I'm here with Mr. Brown, Mr. Taylor. Jeremy's with us in spirit. He's not here, and we have a special guest. We have Chris Henrique, or Henrik, or Henrique, or however you want to say it. We know it's Henrik. We asked before, but we gotta make a little bit of fun there. So Chris, you want to introduce yourself? What do you do? We know you're on Twitter, so how do people get to know you on Twitter? What do you do there? What do you do with all your other stuff that you have?
Yeah, so first, happy to be on the show. Really excited to talk some Red Sox. But you can find me on Twitter, so it's at Chris Henrique. And then while you're there, I have a link tree underneath there, and you can click on at Beyond the Monster, and then there is every single link to everything that we have, all of our socials, our TikTok, Instagram, our Substack, which is just it's been absolutely on fire and it's growing. The subscriptions, it's been beyond thankful for the people that have been supporting not only myself but the group. So but yeah, that's you can find me trying to go to the next level this year with some Red Sox coverage than last year. So
yeah, I mean, you had your source game was on point for this offseason at points in this offseason. You were kind of getting stuff before even the big guys are getting it out there. So I mean, definitely a worthy follow on Twitter. Check it out. Make sure to check out all this other stuff like you said. But let's dive straight into this Red Sox talk. We roll with the flow here. We're a vibes group. This Red Sox team should be a vibes team. However, the vibes have been down a little bit the last couple of days. And especially in the pitching rotation because of the injuries that they've had so far, and even with the battery with Connor Wong getting hurt too. How are we feeling about that? Let's focus on the rotation first. How do we feel about the rotation? Are the injuries super worrisome? Do you feel like, if they only miss a couple weeks, they'll be fine? How do you feel about all that?
yeah, I'm more optimistic about where the rotation is, merely because one, Whitlock really wasn't projected to break camp with the team anyway. They've been kind of moving him along slowly. When we were down in Florida a couple weeks back for the first week of spring training, when they had him throw, they kind of like hid him in like these bullpens, and they put up like all this tarp and stuff, and you couldn't really see him. And then when we got to speak with, I believe it was Brian, the director of scouting, he basically said they're gonna move along slowly. So the Bayo thing was a little worrisome because whenever you have forearm tightness, that's always something to be concerned about. But the way that the Red Sox responded to it, and the fact that he's out there, he's been doing some bullpens, and there hasn't been any issues kind of creeping up on him. That's still again, just I'm not worried about that. Paxton, it's just frustrating. I think Brendan Campbell on Twitter had a really good insight on this, where the last three times that James Paxton faced, a lineup in some capacity, he left that start with some sort of ailment. The best thing and the beauty about baseball, though, guys, is that it's a 162 game season, and we don't need to rush these players back out there. You know what I mean? Like, if we're rushing them back out there because we want them to be on the opening day roster, it doesn't really it's not going to bode well. I'd rather see them get healthy, get them right so they can contribute over the course of this full marathon versus just to say on social media, well, Paxton's back and Bayo and, however else you guys see it on social media. But so I'm not worried. I'm not worried in that respect. If another guy goes down, but it's in the respect to an arm ailment, all right, obviously that's a different conversation, but the depth is there. And I don't think a lot of people are really putting enough into the depth that they do have with this team.
Yeah, I'm a believer in that depth. I mean, because you have Sale. Everyone's been looking at the seven, and that with Sale, Kluber, Paxton, Whitlock, Bayo, Pavetta, and Houck. That's your seven, whatever order you want to put them in. I just list them in random order off the top of my head. But it goes beyond the seven because you have Cutter Crawford and Josh Winkowski, who pitched in the big leagues last year. You have that big three in AAA with Matta, Walter, Murphy. There are guys like that can step in if you need them to, and you especially the Cutter that five and that are projected to be in AAA if they're all starting, unless one of them ends up in the bullpen of Cutter Crawford, Winkowski, Matta, Walter, and Murphy. They've all been great in spring training.
Yeah, I believe it was today. Christopher Smith from Mass Live said that both Crawford and Winkowski have been, they've thrown 5 scoreless innings so far. And first, when it comes to Winkowski, I felt all through off season that dude has gotten such a bad rap because of last year. He was put in a position where, one, he never pitched above the AAA level, had to come in and try to keep this thing afloat. I think he got the only decision in that wasn't like the month of June or July where the starting pitchers just couldn't get a W. We got to talk to Josh Winkowski. We did a podcast with him earlier in the off season, and just talking to him and the accountability that he had for this past season, and literally straight up was just like, I need to be better. Talked about what he wanted to do to be better, and we're seeing that this spring. He looks like a more confident pitcher. He looks like he's taking more command when he's out there. At winter weekend, the same exact thing. He just continued to talk about just how he wants to change his approach, and we're seeing it this spring. Cutter Crawford too. I am pleasantly surprised with what we've seen out of Cutter Crawford so far. If he has to start for 3 or 4 games to begin the season, I don't have reservations right now. I mean, he's looked really, really good. And again, I think it's just a byproduct. I think these guys, they learned a lot from last season and having to pitch in different situations in that lost year. I think that's something they can pull away from there and come into this season and know how to handle these situations moving forward.
I think the biggest story going into this week and this week has been Chris Sale. We finally got to see him on Monday, pitch 2 great innings. He looked like the Chris Sale of 2018, maybe even earlier than that. But, Chris Sale, other players through Red Sox history have had a battery mate. I'm curious to see, Chris Sale has a history of doing that, picking a battery mate. The Red Sox have a great history with, the famous Doug Mirabelli tour through Boston, coming from the airport to pitch to Tim Wakefield. And just to give our fans an extra bonus, the word battery comes from the Civil War. Artillery batteries that were used. It's just a power effectiveness between pitcher and catcher. I had to look that up. I was like, there's got to be something there. I'm from Boston too. I love history. So I thought that was amazing. Do you see a battery mate for Chris Sale this year between catchers? Because there has to be a lead in the catching role.
I would say right now, McGuire is going to be that guy. Who knows what's like the timetable roughly, what that's going to look like with Connor Wong. I still think this season it's going to be McGuire and Alfaro for the majority of the year. Wong having that option, I think I want to say unfortunately hurts him, but I think it kind of does. You're going to get good defense out of McGuire, where you're going to get the better stick out of Alfaro. But to answer your question, in regards to Sale, I would say right now it would have to be Reese McGuire. I don't remember who caught him last year, because I think before he went out was the trade deadline. So, I would say Reese.
Sale pitched in July. He pitched, I think July. I went to a Red Sox game. I think it was July 11th last year. Sale pitched the day before I went, and that was his first start, and that was in Tampa because I live in Florida. So he was, that game against the Yankees was like July 16th or something like that.
Stats. I figured that's something you should know. What was it? Your favorite buddy, Mr. Pop, Doug Mirabelli.
No, I don't know. I feel like this is like the whole battery thing with Sale. It's like, I feel like it has to be Reese McGuire just because he's gonna catch the most games anyways, right? And I think we all love Aquaman. We love Jorge Alfaro, but defensively it is rough. It is real rough behind the plate for Alfaro.
It is, but again, spring training, he's hitting 700 right now. You know what I mean? Where he's not going to hit 700 during the course of the regular season, but if he gives them 285 this year and just let's say he hits 20 bombs, I think they're going to live with that defense. But I'm excited. I mean, I'm more optimistic about this catching trio than I was. We're not going to see 337 from Reese McGuire this year.
No.
You know what I mean? So I
We have a
think,
history of seeing low 200s with catching in the
yeah,
last few years, though, so it's not going to be a shocker.
I would say honestly, if you hit 250, that'd be a win. That'd be a huge, huge win.
Yep.
But yeah, for me, it's got to focus on that defense. Again, to kind of circle back when we talked to Winkowski, he talked a lot about both Connor Wong and Reese McGuire. And he talked about how in between innings, McGuire would grab the iPad. He would start looking at either the hitters that were coming up, previous hitters. He was constantly just trying to get that extra edge. He spoke super high of him. So, I mean, that's just one of the guys, but it seems like pretty much the consensus with these pitchers that, they're comfortable with McGuire. And I mean, you heard about with Connor Wong talking about how he can be a leader in the clubhouse. So I think the Red Sox might have something that people aren't really expecting. But I just would caution, I don't know if the offense is going to be what people are looking for outside of Alfaro.
Yeah, also bring up this with Wong. He has experience catching a guy like a Bayo, right, from their time in AAA. Although it was brief, but still. And then all the guys are going to be caught, like Cutter Crawford and Winkowski's caught. He's caught Mata, Walter, Murphy, all those guys, right? Zach Kelly, we caught last year. So, like, there is also Wong also kind of has that experience factor with those guys too. So I don't know if that'll help it. Maybe that'll help his case later in the year.
No, I think it's valuable though too. Because there's that familiarity with having that catcher. So when those guys are up, let's just say, I don't know, Murphy comes up and he has to do a spot start. Say Connor Wong is back. Just to have the familiarity of a guy that you threw to in the minors behind the dish could prove to just be one less thing to have to worry about in that game versus trying to get on the same page with a McGuire when the last time he threw to him was back in, March. So, yeah, I mean, if you would have asked me this question back in October, I probably would have not has been optimistic about the catching situation, but I don't know. I feel pretty good about it. We just gotta hope that, Alfaro ends up breaking camp with the team and they don't end up losing him because of that upward mobility clause.
Yep. And I think that's a big thing. I did want to explain that. So Alfaro's the upward mobility clause, essentially what it means in simple terms, if another team wants him, they can take him from the Red Sox and put him on their 40-man. However, the Red Sox also have the right of first refusal, which essentially means the Red Sox can just say, no, we'll put him on our 40-man and you can't take him. And then if Red Sox put him on the 40-man, they're most likely means he's going to be on the 26-man roster, most likely.
Yeah, and then you have to play the game of who gets designated for assignment.
Yeah.
Who's that guy that's going to be the leader in the clubhouse for that?
They just signed him.
I think in a perfect world, Chang would have been that guy that gets DFA'd when Story was to come back. So yeah. I'm gonna give you my opinion on Yu Chang. So a lot of Sox fans were up in arms when they didn't go after Andrews and they didn't go after Iglesias and they ended up signing Chang. I looked at it from a different perspective. I looked at it from a different side of the coin. Yeah, you could throw $3 million like the White Sox did to Elvis Andrews, right? But how do we not know that Andrews wanted to come here?
That's what I've said.
Think about the questions that for on the side of for Andrews. One, what does my playing time look like? I used to be an everyday player. Two, what happens when Monstah comes back? Three, what happens when Story comes back? How many days a week am I going to play? How many at-bats am I going to get? That may not be appetizing to a player like Andrews, who obviously had a starting opportunity available to him. And I think Iglesias is it's just nostalgic, and I really wish as Sox fans we can move past the nostalgia piece of some of these guys. So I think Chang is he's just a placeholder, going to keep it warm until one of these guys are ready. I've kind of said throughout the offseason, I thought Caleb Ort was going to end up being a DFA candidate, but the Red Sox continued to invest in him. But, I think he'll end up being the guy. I don't see like Bobby Goldberg getting DFA'd.
No.
But then again, I didn't expect Matt Barnes to get DFA'd. I didn't expect to get a text message at 20-6 that night to say, hey, by the way, Matt Barnes is getting DFA'd. So,
and Caleb Ort has had a little bit of a rough spring training, off the top of my head, if I remember that correctly. That's been great. It's been okay. It
goes 100, but the ball really hasn't moved. You know what I mean?
And there's no life to it. It's just like a straight 100, and that doesn't do you much at the big leagues. I don't know. It feels really weird. But that's a Red Sox problem. That's not a. I'm not going to try and figure that out. I do want to ask though. I want to ask Mr. Taylor, how you feel about your guy Reese McGuire potentially maybe getting the bulk of catching innings? How you feeling about that?
I don't have a problem. I mean, he's actually a bat right now. I mean, I think the kid's got a good swing. I think he does well behind the dish. I think he calls a good game. I agree with Chris. I think he's going to catch a majority of the games this year. I like Alfaro. I saw him, work with Sale in Chris Sale's first appearance this spring. I thought he looked good, except for when he threw to second and went fucking 30 feet off to the right of second base out into center field. I don't know. I thought after I saw the throw, maybe he was throwing to the center fielder. I don't know. But between the two, Connor's obviously down. Get that kid back nice and healthy. But we've got some options. I think that Alvaro makes it out of spring training on the 26 man. But once Connor Wong is healthy, the Red Sox get some decisions to make. How much time do they want to invest in him at the big league level? What do they do with Alvaro? Alfaro rather? What do they do with some of the other players that they have coming back with Monstah, Story, so on and so forth, as both you and Chris had mentioned. So it's some good things to worry about, as opposed to so much negative that I see coming from the Twitterverse, Red Sox Twitter, which, quite honestly, it seems like 50% the fucking sky is always falling. 50% are like me, break out the fire up the fucking duck boats kind of thing.
I think a lot of the fans out there forget there's great mentorship still in this team. Yeah, we have some young catchers on any other team. I'd be worrisome, but you got Tech. Yep. You got Tech sitting on that bench with decades and decades of just mentorship that he can give to these young guys. And
absolutely.
Chris Sale is going to work with these guys. He's not the Chris Sale with 3-4 years ago. Give me my guy or nobody, and he's going to go off in a tantrum. He wants to win. He's a bulldog. He's going to get out that mound. He's going to work with these guys. So I'm not worried about the catching. I love that we brought in a nice spice of some veterans, which we didn't have the last few years. Key one being Turner. Thank God he wasn't hurt that bad yesterday. That was probably one of the most horrific things I've seen in baseball in a long time.
Yeah, that was gross. I like that turned my stomach. So like I work for the most part, I work remote, but yesterday I had to work in the office. So I brought my MacBook and I was streaming the game, and just to see like that was just he's incredibly lucky to walk away from that with just the 16 stitches of swelling. He didn't lose any of his teeth, and that's just I don't care. I like what team you play for, who it is, whatever. Like that's so friggin' scary.
So now that we know he's somewhat healthy, we can kind of joke about it just to say, I think his beard probably fended off a lot of it. I mean, the baseball game kind of screamed. It's like, all right, I'll hit you a little bit. But yeah, I was worked in EMS for 15 years, and I knew when I saw that, I'm like, man, he could have facial fractures, losing a bunch of teeth. I've been hit in the face. I've been hit in the nose by a baseball when I was young, and it definitely gets you. He has that open stance, which that just as a hitter, that just scares the hell out of me because you don't have the time to get out of the way like yesterday. I had no way am I blaming Turner for getting hit.
Think about like Giancarlo Stanton when that happened. Like that's the first thing that popped in my head. I was like, oh crap, how much time he's gonna miss. Like I'm like, he's gonna miss a significant amount of time. That was the first thing that popped in my head.
It was about a year or so before he was himself, though.
Yeah.
He changed his damn name.
Yeah, he also that was after he changed his name, but he also went through like batting stance changes though after that, and then also too he had to wear like the guard thing across. So and that also like he said it changed like his sight a little bit because that thing was kind of in his vision a little bit. So he had to change. It kind of like threw him off for like a year or two.
So to my point, I'm curious with Turner. He's going to be down for a little time. Obviously, you get down the swelling, and he's a bulldog. He's going to be back as soon as he can. If anybody on that team could be a hockey player tomorrow, it's Turner. But I think now people like Duran are gonna get extra at bats. Maybe he was gonna get a look anyway.
He's at the WBC.
Yeah. Oh man, that's right.
But I think he is going to play left field for Mexico, so he will get at bats. It just won't be with the Red Sox.
Yeah, I keep on forgetting about the WBC.
Yeah, but that is a good segue, though.
But...
It is a good segue to Duran, though, because I think we do want to talk a little bit about Duran because we've mentioned him a lot, and I think all of us here at OTM we're on the kind of board of, we still have a lot of faith in Duran. We know the talent's there. We just haven't seen it kind of come to fruition at the big league level. He's had a good spring so far. He's looked a lot better in the field, at least from what you can see on TV, which honestly still isn't that much because you don't get to see him until the ball's already halfway to him in the air. But overall, the spring training has been I don't want to say a pleasant surprise. That really hasn't been a surprise, I guess, but like it's been a good thing, though, I guess.
Yeah. So he's one of the guys that I'm incredibly happy for this spring. He changes he changed his stance. He looks confident when he's at the dish. Wasn't it like almost every hit that he has this spring has gone opposite field? He's looked confident in the field. The at bat that I was the most impressed about this spring was against the Phillies, where he quickly went down 0-2 and then worked a 4-pitch walk immediately right after that. Jarren Duran doesn't do that last year. The Jarren Duran that was struggling mentally in the field, he's not walking. Dude's gonna K. He's a different player. I'm not sure if you guys listened to the latest, not the one with Joe Kelly, but the one before that, Inside the Monster with Chaim Bloom.
Yeah,
they talked about Jarren Duran, and they made a really good point, I thought, if you look at a lot of the Red Sox social media and a lot of the things that they've been putting out, he's attached to the hip to Verdugo. They have, video with him with Devers. It looks to me like Jarren Duran is part of it this time. Whereas comes to camp, gets sent down to Worcester, he's with those guys, he gets called up. Now is the stress and pressure of being a big leaguer. It didn't really go the way that everybody thought it was going to go the first time around. Didn't go hit we wanted it the second time around. Obviously, we have that. We'll never forget the fly ball in center field and the issues that he had against Kansas City. But I disagree with a lot of people on Twitter. He's put in the work, and I never once questioned his commitment. I just think that it's always been for me what's been between the pipes with Jarren Duran. And I think this go around right now, he is a different kid that's in the box, and I'm excited for it. I want him to make the team. Tapia looks good, though. It's going to be really hard to, spring MVP right now. I think they said on Mass Live. But I would say start him out in AAA, let him get the consistent at bats. If he looked this good in the spring and he continues on the WBC, he'll find a way back in this lineup for the Red Sox.
Yeah, and I think we talked about Duran and even Dahlbeck too a lot this offseason, but especially Duran. And I think all four of us here, Jeremy's not here, but the three of us who are here, and Jeremy too, we've all said like it's all a mental thing for him. He gets the mental side of things right, and it also too we've kind of brought up maybe clubhouse dynamics weren't great for him, and it was kind of hard to really kind of fit in with the group. But it feels like this is a group that he fits in. Him and Doogie B are like tight, seems super duper tight, and they're going to play for Mexico together. So I feel like just that duo too, Duran having a guy in Verdugo that he can be really tight with, like Devers had with Bogarts, right? Because when Devers came up to the big leagues, Bogarts was still like 26, 20 or 25, 26. And I knew that Verdugo now he's 26. I know Duran's he's like 20 when Devers, he's 24, I think, or 25. But there's still that kind of, but Verdugo's been in the big leagues for a few years now. And having that kind of, I will call Verdugo a veteran because he has been in big leagues for more than just like 1 or 2 years. Having that kind of veteran presence that he's close with and can be around and he can be involved in the clubhouse dynamics and the team dynamics is a big thing for him. And also for a guy like a Bobby Dahlbeck, right? Because he's looked better this spring than he did. He's looked a lot better this spring than what he did last year during the regular season.
He has. I don't think he makes the squad. I don't think he makes the 26-man roster. But the reason why I'm going to temper my expectations with Bobby Dahlbeck, it's because we've said for the last couple of springs what you just said. I'm happy for him, but he too, though, like again, let's credit where credit is due. He does look like a different hitter as well. There's been many of at bats this spring where he's gone oppo, where he's kept his hands back just to make contact at the base hit, where in the past it's either home run or nothing. I know a lot of fans, they want to maybe move him and try to grab something for him. I think there's still some value there. He's going to be able to place him first, going to place him third in a pinch. They can put him in, maybe at short. That's a pinch. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I think there's still some value that's there again. But if they're in the mix of things around July and you're looking to make an upgrade, you want to grab an arm, and he had a decent spring. He looked good in a call up or two with the Red Sox. By the way, he's swinging a good bat down with the Woo Sox. That could be a kid that you can put in with a deal and then go ahead and get something to maybe help you with for a playoff push. So I'm not ready to trade Bob. I'm not ready to DFA him, but I need to see him have a good, consistent year outside of spring training.
Yes. I think that's fair, right? Because like, yes, 21 was good, but like, he didn't really do much in 21 until like the end of June, was it? So I think that's kind of, or mid-June or whenever it was, right? Whenever he started hitting home runs like crazy.
Usually it's around the trade deadline for him.
Yeah, it's when it heats up. When it heats up weather-wise. I remember, I think last year it was in like June, and I looked on Fangraphs and did their weather splits. They have weather splits like temperature-wise or whatever, a whole bunch of different stuff. And like when it was 75 degrees or warmer, you had like a 130 weighted runs created plus, if not higher. It might have been even more, like 140. But like when it was under 75, it was like 80 or 75 or whatever it was. It was, I don't know. But also I do think, yeah, there is a pressure thing with him, and that also comes with Duran. And I want to kind of parlay this into the Red Sox fan base, right? Because this Red Sox fan base is very quick to harp on someone when they make their debuts and they have, just a bad first week in the big leagues. You saw a little bit with Cassis, even though he's still I think everyone with their kind of head screwed on right is looking at Cassis like he's our first baseman in the future, and he looked solid down the stretch last year. But even like that first week after it called up, people are like, he's only going to hit 100. He's going to strike out every at bat. He can't. He's too impatient. He's too patient at the plate. And so it is kind of, we do see a lot of negativity in the Red Sox fan base. But yourself being optimistic, I'm pretty sure we're all optimistic about the Red Sox. How do you kind of feel about the Red Sox fan base? Obviously, some negativity is warranted. But also to kind of, so the people who are just like always negative, how do you kind of feel about that?
I would say that we're a passionate fan base, right? We're passionate about the team. At the end of the day, I think collectively everybody wants to see the Red Sox win, even though I think some people, they get off with them losing or, wishing for people to get hurt just so that way Chaim Bloom could potentially get fired. But I do think that, some fans need to come back down to earth a little bit, that there's optimism, but then there's, it's okay to criticize some of the players. At times, I got to tell you, like, I'll scroll and the mute button has become my best friend because some of this stuff, like, it's nonsense quite a bit. But I think overall, everybody's intention, I think is we want to see this team be successful. We want to see this team be competitive again. I'm hoping that last year was just that fluke and anomaly, and that this year, it seems like a good group.
Can I just touch on that? I think what you're saying is absolutely correct. I mean, you do have media organizations like WEI who just spur up things with clickbait, and it's awful commentating and awful sports media in my mind. I get that you don't want to be fanboys about the Red Sox and you have to be a little pessimistic, but it's constant pessimism from them. It's like the Titanic for everything. And I'm with you. Derek said it's there. I think a lot of the limelight got put on to Duran too quickly. I'm not a stats guy. I'll leave this to stats, but I think center field is probably going to be one of the hardest places at Fenway to play in the league with the triangle out there. Seeing him in left field, and I'm a big Duran fan, maybe because I'm an 80s Gen X guy, Duran, but I want to see him succeed. I think he can succeed. I didn't play Major League Baseball, but I played outfield for quite a long time. In left field, you had to still have to be in the game, but not as much, especially with that short outfield. You're going to have, there's going to have to be a lot of practice between that shortstop position and communication because those two don't have familiarity. That's the one thing that worries me. I don't want to see injuries come out of that. So I hope there's a lot of practice, a lot of communication as we move into the season. But I do think his range will fit up much nicer in left field. And I hope to see him up there opening day.
The other thing I want to touch on real quick, though, too, in regards to like the media side of it, because it's hard because even with writing, and with our Substack, I tell the guys like, one, I don't care what you read about, you know what I mean? Like I want you, content is content. But when it comes to the Red Sox, for the media, it's easier to promote a little more of a negative narrative because that is what is going to drive people to pay attention and have a conversation, which sucks. Basketball and football are going to pay the bills for everybody, 985 as well as WEI and these major outlets as it is. So when the Red Sox aren't as good, it's easier to stir the fan base up real quick from a negative standpoint. I'm going to be real curious if this team comes out of the gate real hot. And let's just say they are in first place of the first month, just throwing this a hypothetical out. I don't think they're going to get talked about as much until around the middle of the season. And I think that's going to be a good thing. So,
Yeah.
Let them fly under the radar. But, I think our fan base is smart enough to where they want to get their information and they want to get their news and stuff when it comes to the Red Sox. For me, I try to balance it out. I love reading Mass Live. I do the Globe all the time. I read pretty much Rob Bradford's content on WEI. And it's kind of like that repeat for me. That's like my rotation not because it's a fanboy or anything like that. It's just, I just find that the information is consistent and I feel like it's a relatable commentary between those groups. Obviously, you Pete Abe's of the world and things like that, but you're getting the information that you need from your team and how you want to digest it from there is how you want to digest it. I've just taken the approach of it's hard because I want to show a little more of my fan side, but I also am trying to be neutral because as you create content about the team. And as this last year, it's gone from, hey, I'm writing as a hobby to, oh shit, like you've networked the last year and you're talking to these beat guys. Now you're talking to the players in the Red Sox. I had a fanboy moment right before the winter weekend when Alex Cora followed me on Twitter. And then I looked the other day and then he unfollowed. And I'm friendly with Chris Cotillo and I said, hey, I'm like, oh, that sucks. Alex Cora unfollowed me on Twitter. And he's like, no, take that as a compliment because he unfollows all the people who cover the Red Sox during the season. And I just thought that was kind of cool. You know what I mean? Like, so for me, I've taken a certain approach and I try not to mix it up too much because I can get fired up really quick. I sometimes joke and say I'll have like real life George Costanza moments. So I try not to let that show on Twitter. So if you see that, feel free to reel me in.
It's funny you mentioned about the following on Twitter. I'm a huge sports card collector. I've been collecting. That was one of the hobbies I picked up during COVID. And one of the things Topps put out during their annual seminar down in Arizona a couple weeks was that there are going to be redemption cards from players that if you get it in your pack, that player will follow you on Twitter.
Huh.
Yeah, so I think that's unique, but it's also dangerous because you might get some schmuck who just says some really nasty stuff, and then they go to Alex Cora and say, hey, why is Verdugo following this idiot on Twitter? it's a double-edged sword. But you get back to the Red Sox. I think Cora should be sending the Bruins and Celtics organization cases of beer, whiskey, wine, because they're going to take the pressure off the Red Sox, and their schedule really leans in their advantage for especially the first month, I should say, because
Yeah,
they don't play the Yankees. They're not
yeah,
getting beat up by the AL East. They're going to be able to do some things and get comfortable in that division. I think I'm very optimistic, and not as optimistic as Taylor usually is, but I'm very optimistic, looking forward. The only problem I see is the camaraderie that the players, the players that are going to be away for the next couple of weeks with the WBC. So I'm curious your feelings on the WBC. Doesn't happen every year, but coming out of spring training, and it happens for all 30 teams. What play does that have on a team coming out, because they don't have the full clubhouse rah 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 that we're going to go win this championship, because not everybody's there for the entire spring training. And what's your feelings on WBC in general?
So I think WBC is great for baseball. This obviously it's been a sport the last handful of years that I've said for a while that they need to do a better job in marketing themselves, specifically the players. This World Baseball Classic can do that in just one big swoop with their players, the style of play. I think the only thing that kind of sucks with this though is that the new rules that's implemented right now are not
yeah.
going to be with the WBC. So you have these guys that started play some spring training games, pitch clock, everything else. Now you got to turn that switch off. You go back to old rules to put new rules back in, whatever. But I think it's great. I'm looking forward to it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to stay up for the whole game. I think that's on tonight at 11 o'clock, but I'm looking forward to seeing tomorrow's Wednesday's exhibition between Puerto Rico and the Red Sox.
Yep.
I think it's gonna be fun.
Brandon Walter, I think, is starting for the Red Sox.
Yeah, I didn't see who the Sox were putting out there yet, but no, I'm excited for it. As for the Red Sox side of it, yeah, it kind of stinks because we want to see as much of Masataka Yoshida as we can. He came to camp early though, specifically to kind of acclimate himself, not only just to the United States and time zone, everything else, but to be around this new team. Guys like Duran though that have had a good spring now goes to the WBC, and you have to wonder, does that translate? You hope it does. Sox got a lot of players that's there.
Yeah.
So, but what it does though is we're gonna get to see guys like Bobby Dahlbeck, guys, Fitzgerald, Christian Koss,
Rafaela,
Rafaela, Greg Allen, guys that may not obviously make the team, but might be depth at some point throughout the season. If someone goes down, it's going to give us a look at some of those players. And I don't think that's a bad thing either. It's not going to be a bad thing for this Red Sox team. You're going to have your fans that are going to scream and cry if any one of these players starts out slow to begin the season, but that's going to happen. I think the last WBC, there's a ton of players the first 30 days. They said that, trying to, get back into the regular swing of things, it kind of, hurt them. But obviously we'll wait for that to come. But I'm excited. I don't necessarily have a favorite in who's going to win. I'm root for USA, but I want to see some good baseball and just start seeing some guys that are, this Olympic style tournament and get us ready for the regular season.
Yeah, I'm all aboard the Japan hype train. I love the rotation. With Shohei, Darvish, Sasaki, and Yamamoto. I've just been
Did you see the home run Ohtani hit off his knee today or yesterday in exhibition? He's different.
Yeah,
He's
okay.
different.
So I saw Shohei in Tampa, right? And he took a pitch that was off the plate inside, gets his hands inside, and shot it to left field like 400 feet for a home run. Almost I'm like, how the hell do you do that? Like, it pitches like it had to be at least like 3 inches inside off the plate, and he just gets his hands through and smacks it to the left field. I was just like, how do you do that? Also too, I do want to bring this up with the Red Sox schedule, and I know we don't play the Yankees till June. You also look at, they play Tampa in Tampa, in April. They don't got to make that long ass trek to Tampa until September after that. I think that's also a big thing too. That's a long road trip down to Tampa, and I'm pretty sure they don't play in Miami either this year. So once they come down to Florida in April, like they're not coming back until September. That's a long plane trip. You only have to do one more time, and that's not until the end of the year. I think that's also kind of a big thing.
Not playing the American League East as much is going to be helpful for Nick Pivetta.
Yes.
Not that I'm trying to take a little shot at Pivetta there, but I'm going to give you my little hot take here when it comes to Pivetta. I tweeted that I didn't think that he was going to make it into the rotation, because that's a lot of what has been, speculated and talked about. And then obviously these guys went down with injury, but I find it hard to have a guy that struggled so badly against the AL East last year, and you look at what he did against New York and the Rays and Toronto. I think his ERA was in like the sixes, overall. They're going to play them less. I want to ask you guys, I'm going to kind of put the host hat on really quick. Take away the fact that Nick Pivetta can take the ball every fifth day. Do you think that he should be in the rotation for the Red Sox once everybody's healthy? Is he someone that should be taking the ball every fifth day just because he can throw 170 innings in a season?
Go ahead, Taylor.
I like Nicky P. I like his tenacity. I like his moxie. I think he's got some good stuff. I mean, he was unfortunately he was either 100% on or he was 100% off, getting lit the fuck up. But when he was right and he was bringing it, I want him in my starting five all day long. But that I think that's with basically any player. They're going to have their hot streaks, they're going to have their cold streaks. But if you're throwing low to mid 90s with no movement, it's going to get lit up. These guys are capable now of adjusting to hitting over 100 miles an hour. So he's got to bring some secondary pitches that are going to have to make him a little bit more competitive. Yeah, 170 innings is awesome because it's going to save your bullpen. It's going to give you the depth that you need. But if you've got a 5 ERA and you're sub 5, are you really bringing that much to the table? And you're taking up that rotation spot, a spot on the 26-man roster. I mean, if gun to head right now, do I want Nicky P on my starting 5? I'll take him right now because he hasn't shown me why he shouldn't be. We're still very much into the infancy of spring training. But give him a shot and see if he can put his shit together like he did so many different times last season. I mean, there were times, man, he was just, solid, just absolutely solid. And then there were other times it's like, fuck, man, I think I could hit off of him. I mean, it's just, and I can't hit shit. So
I look at Pivetta as Porcello 2.0. He reminds me a lot of Porcello. Do I think he's going to have the bounce back years? Because Porcello would have a horrible year. He didn't have a Cy Young year. Horrible year, Cy Young year. I think he's going to be reignited this year. I think he's going to be pushed with Sale back in the lineup, Kluber in the lineup. He's not a top 3 rotation guy. Bello in a perfect world, he's going to be your number 3. 4 or 5. I'm absolutely comfortable. Like Taylor said, he's going to give you the innings. It's just a matter of, is his delivery back to where it needs to be? I don't think there was a lot of consistency, and I'll use that term battery again, with the battery mate and being comfortable with what he was throwing. And to go with stats, the schedule is going to definitely help him out. For some reason, I don't know why this is, and that the Red Sox really play very well against National League teams. They have 42 teams, 42 games, I think I counted, against National League teams, which I love because I'm in the Midwest now. I get to see my Red Sox in Milwaukee for very cheap money. But I'm very enthusiastic about Pivetta just because I don't think he's a starting rotation or top 3 rotation guy, and the pressure won't be as insurmountable for him.
Yeah, I'll say this straight out. If everyone's healthy, I don't think he gets in the rotation. But I'm going to compare him to someone. I don't think he throws as hard as this person, but he might be just as crazy. And this is why him in the bullpen might work. He might be just as crazy as Joe Kelly. And you put Pivetta in the bullpen, maybe his fastball ticks up a couple miles per hour and shorter stints, and maybe you get just that craziness in the bullpen of Joe Kelly being how Joe Kelly was a wild man, and get that with Nick Pivetta maybe. I mean, And Nick Pavetta's in such a weird spot because it's like the Phillies could not figure him out, right? And he comes to Boston. It's like maybe the Red Sox have figured him out, but he's the most inconsistent pitcher ever. If you get like that Joe Kelly 2018, where Kelly was like terrible 1 month, then he had like a sub 1 ERA the next month, then he was like terrible the next month, then he was great the next 2 months, then he was terrible, then he was great again for like the end of September and all through the postseason was amazing. Like you get something like that, I mean, when he's on, you rely on him in the bullpen, and when he's off, you just don't use him. Just Matt Barnes him, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, because I got like this healthy rotation. Everyone's healthy, and I feel like everyone's going well. Like that inconsistency, I don't like.
Well, you just pointed out, if the schedule permits, if he's your number 5 starter, you skip a start and he's not playing well, rest him up. So he's not.
Yeah, but then that kills his confidence if he's in the rotation, though, because now you're skipping a start just because he's pitching so bad. And honestly, like even like so, like I'd rather, especially you get to like mid-season, I'd rather have like the upside of a Mata if he's pitching well in AAA. And also gotta think of it this way too. The Red Sox still have like 7-8 million to go to the luxury tax. When you get to the deadline, the Red Sox are in contention, and they're looking to make a move. They can always bring in a starter who that salary is going to be prorated for the rest of the year. So they might be making 15 million a year, but it'll still fit under the luxury tax because of how it's prorated, right? So they could still like legitimately make a move. I said before they made what was their last? I don't remember what their last like kind of bigger money. Oh, Adam Duvall. Before they brought in Duvall, before Story got injured, and they had like 16 million left. I was like, could we get German Marquez? Because I really like German Marquez, and I know he's good outside of Coors. He's terrible at Coors, so him being with the Rockies is just stupid because he sucks at Coors. But like, could they get him? I mean, just get it to fit under the luxury tax if they played it right. But like but still, you bring in a guy at the deadline, and then I think it really kicks Pivetta out of the rotation.
The reason why I was asking that was because when the Globe came out with the article about Pivetta and Chorus comments about how it's about him being, and you guys, I think all three touched on it, consistency. But it was the line for me that gave me the biggest concern was preparation going into games, just being consistent. Doesn't matter if it's October or April. To me, that kind of just says to me, this dude doesn't prepare for the length of a 162, and his stuff is not good enough to just go out there and throw. Yeah. And seeing that just one paragraph, and I've been fixated on that, and I'm trying not to be too fixated on it because one, I'm not trying to shit on Nick Pivetta, but that's where I want to see over the course of this spring here is what does the results look like? To me, I don't really so much care. Obviously, the wins and losses, it's great they're undefeated, but it's really just how they went about getting to that result. Pivetta, I'm going to give him a pass his first start coming off of COVID. That's his first go around. What does the next one look like? And what does one look like after that? I want to see if the beat guys who have this access to Nick Pivetta are asking about the consistency and asking about the preparation. So that way he can kind of basically shut up the haters that are writing about him saying you don't prepare. You know what I mean? So last year I thought at one point the dude could have, made a legitimate bid to be an all-star. He had that stretch of like 9-10 starts where he was absolutely electric. He kept the rotation afloat. So I'd like to see him as the bulk innings guy. Ultimately, I think if they're going to be successful this year, I think if he's going to either be the 5 or the bulk inning guy.
Yeah, 100%. I've always said though, it's so weird because like, do they decide to go like, oh, we like Cutter Crawford more than Nick Pivetta in a long role in the bullpen maybe, and then it's like, where does that leave Pivetta? It's so weird because there's so much depth. It's like, what the heck do you do with all it? Because like I look at it and I go like, even like if you don't include that big 3 in AAA of Mata, Murphy, and Walter, like you still look at like Cutter Crawford, like I believe could be on the opening day roster and be totally fine. And even like a Winkowski, I think probably not opening day roster, but like if you absolutely needed him to, like for the first couple of weeks of the season, like I'd be okay with it, right? Especially if he continues pitching once for training. So it is very weird, like how does Pivetta fit into the puzzle, especially when everyone's healthy, Although
I
it
still
seems like he'll
think
get a rotation spot early
Sale
on.
and Kluber are going to help him along the way. I mean, they're definitely older than him because Kluber's not the fireball guy. Sale is not. He still throws some seeds out there, but they're not the fireball guys that they used to, and they have to pitch now. So I can't not believe that they don't share ideas on how to get to that point and how to get through that 162 game season where they didn't. Pivetta didn't have that mentorship, and I think that's going to be the biggest part of this team this year is mentorship because there is veteran guidance that they didn't have the last few years.
No, I think that's a valid point. I think that's another point that's underlooked too, because you think about last year, if Chris Sale was able to break camp and be in the rotation, just from a veteran standpoint, what does that look like for that that team? So I think it's a valid point. It's I've been saying this with buddies and they don't believe me. We've been saying it all podcast. This team, we keep saying depth, and this team is in a much different spot. They have this depth, and it's a good problem to have to be debating on what Nick Pavetta's role is going to be versus automatically penciling him into a spot. This is a completely different spot that this Red Sox team has been in under Chaim Bloom, and it's starting to take shape to what he was talking about with that long-term sustainability. Hasn't translated to a trophy yet, but you can start to see some of what his vision is with all of these players starting to show their head, especially this spring.
It's like the Rays situation with depth, where it's like the Rays, like Glasnow's injured, Baz is already out for the year, and it's like, oh yeah, but the number one prospect, Taj Bradley, who's like a top 25 prospect in baseball, is like waiting in the wings in AAA if you need him, and it's like how it was like the Rays already had a really good rotation. Now you're gonna add their number one prospect could potentially into it, or like the Red Sox. Now you start looking at them, and it's like, okay, you got your guys that kind of seven that we talked about, but then you also got that whole AAA depth. You look at the 40 man for the Red Sox. It's like it's hard to guess who the heck's gonna be DFA'd because there's no clear obvious choice. Like the Rays are like that in a sense. It's like who the heck do they DFA when they need to DFA someone because there are 40 man just stacked with talent, right? And I think that's what the Red Sox like. It's the first step of kind of building that sustainability, like you said, because last year we saw that depth get tested and it wasn't really ready because some guys had just like a guy like a Josh Winkowski probably wasn't ready last year. But it seems like this year he's learned from those experiences at least and seems to be a lot more ready this year than he was last year. Same thing with a guy like a Cutter Crawford seems a lot more ready this year, although he was seemingly ready last year at the end of spring training, albeit for a bullpen role. So that's just kind of how I see it.
Yeah, I look. That's I'm optimistic. I'm excited about where things are at. Would we like to have seen, some of the usual suspects that we keep hearing about on Twitter all the time? Xander be back, all like stuff like that. Sure. But in the grand scheme of things, it's, the Red Sox are now starting to develop a new identity. This one here for 2023. And, it just like the other 29 teams, they're going to start the season 0-0. And who knows until they start playing baseball games, right?
Yeah, I
Not
guarantee you nobody predicted what the Bruins were going to do this year.
No,
I didn't think they were a playoff team this year.
So I thought they were a playoff team, but to be the wagon that they've been, you just don't know until they actually start playing games. I think a big part of the reason the Bruins are so successful, they are a team that is loaded with depth, but the camaraderie and the chemistry is there. When we were down in Florida that first week, I think we were there for 3 days. I know it's cliche to say the vibes are good. It was a different vibe at the ballpark. Just when you had an opportunity, like we got an opportunity to talk to Tristan Costas for a couple minutes. It was a different vibe. We talked to Chaim Bloom. It just being able to just have a conversation and sound like a robot. He sounded like a dude having a convo, right? The vibe around the complex with the people in attendance, there was no bullshit about not giving this guy this money or Heim this or whatever. There was legitimate optimism because it's spring, it's warm, baseball is back. Your team that you've rooted for your entire life is in front of you. It's a new group of guys. If you don't want to get invested, that's fine. But I have one friend, and I told him, like, look, dude, like, you want to be out on this team now. I'm going to bust your balls when you come crawling back when this team is good in July, in August. Like, it's stick with your team, stand with your team. And if not, go to Lids and buy a Yankee hat. You know what I mean? Like, this is what the Red Sox are doing. Embrace it. Bitching about it isn't going to change anything. So this is what it is. And I think that this is a team that you could get excited about. I think people are afraid to, because if it doesn't work out, then, you know what I mean? It's their being vulnerable as a fan. Hell with it. Like, this is the team that we grew up loving and rooting for. They're going to start 0-0 in a couple of weeks. And who the hell knows from there?
Yeah.
You sound like you've been reading my Twitter feed. I'm so optimistic about this team. I've said it several times. They've got 2013 vibes. This team has got character. They've got veterans. They've got moxie. They're gonna be fucking fun to watch. And my optimism is not the village idiot type optimism. It's optimism because they've got some fucking ponies. They brought in some key players. They brought in some good bullpen pieces. We have a closer for the first time in 3 years.
Years, yes.
Longer than 3 years. It's like 5 years.
JT, when he comes back, he's going to rake when he gets healthy. Yoshida, I think, is going to pepper the shit out of the monster. I think Doogie is going to have a great year. I think Kike is going to have a bounce back year. And if worst case scenario, I'm wrong, fuck it, I'm wrong. But if I'm right, I'm going to be in fucking Boston in late October and early November watching the World Series and be there for the parade. So all these people that are so damn negative about the team, go root for someone else. I don't have time. I don't have time to carry your burden for you. And I think there's two factions of Red Sox fans that I've been able to see kind of now that I've kind of semi-retired and spend entirely too much time on social media now that I'm going to be fucking 50. But I think you've got the Red Sox fans that are pre-2004 that are afraid things are going to revert back to the way they were, where it's just going to be shitty. And then you've got post-2004 fans that are spoiled to World Series championships, division titles like they did in 16, 17, and 18. And then we were 2 games away from the World Series in 21. So I think they need to give Bloom the time that he needs. You are correct, sir. We are starting to see what his plan is. And I think his plan is that he has put a damn good product on the field. They're going to be competitive. Now, they may not win the division, but I think they're at least a wild card team as they are right now? 100%. And if you get to the fucking dance, you've got a chance. You can go home with the pretty girl at the prom if you get to the dance. And that's all I think they should do is give them a chance.
Yeah, I like that rhyme. With that rhyme, we go to Stats and Shats.
Yeah, no, I do want to too, real quick. It's like being optimistic doesn't cost you anything. It's not, you don't have to pay to be optimistic. Like,
that's correct.
There's no monetary value. Like, yeah, you might be wrong, but it's more fun to be optimistic about the team than to be negative and, be upset at the team for every minor thing that realistically doesn't mean much, because it's, as we're recording, it's March 7th. Like, come on, like, we're like, the season we haven't even gotten to opening day, right? Like, maybe we're a couple months of the season, the team's struggling, like, that's one thing, but it's March 7th. Relax, be optimistic. I think it's a good carry on to our Stats and Shats segment. So our Stats and Shats, essentially, I come up with, because of Nick being me stats, that I come up with either a stat that I have to have the crew guess what that stat means, or who's a leader in the stat, or sometimes it's trivia. So our Stats and Shats this time, this didn't happen in 2022, but according to Fangraphs, it happened 10 times in 2021. So according to Fangraphs, if you go to their splits and you go by weather splits, you can select snow. So according to Fangraphs, 10 players hit a home run in a game that it was technically snowing, according to Fangraphs. Can you name those 10 players? They were all in 2021. I will give the hint to which team they are because there's 10 guys.
Colorado's got to be one of them.
Let's start with the Red Sox. There are two guys who played for the Red Sox in 2021.
It hit homers in the snow in 2021.
In the snow. I put snow in air quotes because I think that's technically that just means like when the game starts.
Devers.
Devers is one.
And we had two, huh?
I'm gonna go with Bogarts.
Not Bogarts.
Yeah, he didn't hit home runs until late in the season.
What'd you say, Chris?
Was it
JD?
No, it's not JD.
Doogie?
Nope.
All right.
Vasquez.
No.
Hmm.
It's not on the team anymore. So you're on the right track with Bogarts and Vasquez, except Vasquez is actually a better track. This guy was traded after 20.
All right, he was traded?
What'd you say, Chris?
Hunter Renfroe.
Yeah, Hunter Renfroe.
Okay.
So Renfroe and Devers are two. Let's move on to the White Sox. There's three from the White Sox. Two of them still play for the White Sox. One of them left as a free agent this offseason.
Tim Anderson?
Tim Anderson is one.
Lou Bob.
No, Lou Bob is not one.
Abreu?
Jose Abreu's two for the White Sox. One more from the White Sox.
Luis Robert?
Nope. No Lou Bob.
Oh, you just said that.
We call him Lou Bob.
Huh.
I literally cannot think of another player that played for the Chicago White Sox.
Think of a guy in the White
Abreu.
Sox who never gets hits but draws like a gazillion walks and like only hits home runs.
I was gonna say Eloy Jimenez, but he never seems to be healthy.
Yeah.
It's not him. He had a really bad 2022, and I think was like really bad. Catcher.
Yeah, I definitely.
Grandal?
Yep, Yasmani Grandal. I remember he had like a 400 on base with like a sub 200 average for like most of 2021. So imagine that one. Let's move on. Let's do Houston. It kind of relates to Chicago.
God, you're gonna make us vomit all over our screens.
Somebody on the Houston Astros hit a home run where it's snowing, so obviously that wasn't why they were playing at Minute Maid.
I would think not.
Altuve?
No longer with the Astros.
Oh, no longer with the Astros. Huh.
Carlos Correa.
Not Carlos Correa.
Brantley.
Nope, he's still with Houston.
George
Oh, is
Springer.
Yeah,
Not George Springer.
Wow.
Springer was already gone in 21, I think.
Marisnik.
Nope. It's 2021. He was on the team in 22 as well. He's currently
no
a free
longer
agent.
with them.
Currently a free agent.
Oh, Gurriel.
Yep, Yuli Gurriel.
In the snow.
Yeah, I guess. The reason I said it kind of relates to Chicago is because Jose Abreu replaced him. You know what? Let's do Colorado.
Chris Bryant.
No, wasn't in Colorado in 21. Remember, this happened in 20. These happened in 2021. Remember that.
Charlie Blackmon.
No, first name starts with a Y.
Starts with a Y. Is Yonder Alonso play there?
No.
I have no idea. Dude.
Starts with a Y.
Yanni Gomes. Yordan Alvarez plays in Houston. Yeah, I got nothing.
Right now, I feel like my brain is running through, like, if you're playing MLB The Show and you're cycling
Yeah,
through.
I know. This is why I
That's what
know
my
that
brain's
guy.
doing.
This is why I know this guy. He's an outfielder.
An outfielder. begins with-
Venezuelan.
I don't know, man.
Colorado's just been so irrelevant for years.
Is his last name Almonte?
No. Last name starts with a D.
Oh,
Why?
his brother Del Monte. He likes green beans.
Who is it? Stats. My head hurts.
Jonathan Daza.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
glad not. I'm glad
Nope.
a gun wasn't being pointed at my kid's head.
I'm glad we threw the towel in on that one.
That was one of his 2 home runs in 2021.
Hey, I do. Before you go on to the next, I do have one because it's on the tip of it's. Did Miggy hit a home run in 21 in the snow? Because I remember him hitting one
I
in the
think he
snow.
technically did, but they didn't count. It's not counted on this list.
Oh, okay. Because I remember him going.
I don't know. I don't think.
I
it
think
was
I remember the
raining.
same home run, and it was
Yeah.
like coming down hard.
Yes, but I don't think it was
Yeah.
snowing technically at the start of the game, so I don't think it
No,
counts.
they probably didn't get the game in because it still kept on snowing.
But it was an Oppo one, and the snow was
that
coming
did
down.
happen. That's why I had to double check like this list. I was like, what? And I'm like, you know what? We're just gonna roll with how the list is. All right, next one is Cleveland. Played for Cleveland in 2021. At least when this happened. I don't know if he played for any team. He did. I think he also played for the Rays in 2021. Played with the D-backs last year.
Jordan Luplow.
Yep, Jordan Luplow. Who's left? Cincinnati. Guy from Cincinnati.
Play for him in 21.
Yes.
Is he there now?
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure he's not.
It's not Moustakis, is it?
Did he retire, or is he just?
No, he's still
agent?
active. No, I think he might have gotten traded this offseason.
Jesse Winker.
No, Winker was traded before
so
22.
Yeah.
Oh, who's the kid who went to Philly?
Nope, he's not with Philly right now.
The third baseman. That went to Suarez.
Nope, he's in Minnesota now.
Kyle Farmer.
Yep, Kyle Farmer. All right.
Jesus Christ.
I think this is the last one. I'd be shocked if anyone got this. I didn't know who this guy was before.
And if you don't know it, I'm not going to know it.
Played for the D-backs in 2021.
I couldn't name you one person on the D-backs in 2021.
Ketel Marte, but it's not him.
Madison Bumgarner.
No. That would be hilarious if it was.
Jake Lamb.
No, it is not. Jake. He played 58 games in 2021. He's only got 70 career games in the big leagues, all with the Diamondbacks.
I was gonna say Nick Ahmed, but that wouldn't fit.
His positions on Baseball Reference are pinch hitter, second base, and third base.
I was gonna say it's gonna be like a lightning player. It's gonna be something Rojas.
No, it's not Josh Rojas.
Can you give me a hint? Give me his first name.
His first name is Andrew. And he's not old. If he's not old, what is he?
Young?
Yep, Andrew Young.
Oh.
Never heard of him.
I like what you did there.
Yeah, I never heard of him until I found
I felt like I was on Saturday Night Live's Jeopardy.
He was
words that begin with T.
He was a 37th round draft pick by the Cardinals out of Indiana State University. So there's some.
That's these fucking stats and shats, man. They give me a headache 3/4 of the time. I swear to God.
Well, yeah,
I'm gonna start. You're gonna make me start drinking Jack Daniels again, dude. And for every one I get wrong, I'm gonna take a shot.
Oh, you're gonna be drinking a lot.
I'll be drunk.
Then.
I'll be drunk by the end of it.
So our last episode we did, I had a stats and shots in. So I don't know if you know this. Obviously you know about BABIP, right? But on Baseball Savant, they have a stat that's called batting average on contact, which is essentially BABIP, but they also include home runs in it. So it's literally labeled as BACON or bacon.
Oh God, here we go again with the fucking bacon.
So I was just explaining what bacon was and who were the league leaders in bacon.
Just go watch the last 15 minutes of our podcast.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen that,
it goes off the rails.
It went so far off the rails, but it was amazing.
We should have actually named that podcast Off the Rails with Bacon.
Oh my
100%.
We just named the episode Bacon, but yeah, that was the last one. So yeah, anything Chris you wanna replug everything that you got that you're on or whatever.
I would just say definitely not only just me, but like if you go to the Beyond the Monster Twitter handle, just take a look at the guys who are writing and give them a follow. They work really hard. I say work, it's not really work. We do this because we really enjoy it. It's a hobby that we all genuinely enjoy to do and write about and stuff like that. So definitely give those guys a follow. They do a really good job. But yeah, just Beyond the Monster. We're going to be ramping up our podcasting pretty soon. We've been lax with that, so we're hoping to we're going to get Obstructive View going again. We're going to be reintroducing our Sox Specs Red Sox podcast because we are blessed this season to have media credentials for the Woo Sox. So we're going to try to bring some content that we get to see on a weekly basis when we're around the team. And then the Round and Third baseball podcast, where we've been very fortunate to connect with a lot of players outside of the Sox system, and we're gonna continue to try to get as many interviews as we can this season. So we're gonna be pumping out a lot of stuff. So just head over to Beyond the Monster. Something that was an article series in 2020 during the pandemic has turned into like a little miniature brand, and it's taken off, and we're really excited. So we're very thankful for everybody who supports us. I genuinely cannot express that enough.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with there being dozens and dozens of podcasts. It shows you, like you said, the passion of Red Sox fans, the fact that we want to talk about the Red Sox, and there's just a love. Baseball, there's definitely a lot of love with baseball, and I look forward to the 2023 season. Thanks again for coming on, Chris. I hope you had a good time. It was fun talking to you, get your input.
No, it was fun. I hope try this again. I'm hoping to do more of these as people ask and things like that. It's fun just to talk. One, it's cool because you're putting personality and faces and voices to Twitter profile pages, and I think it's so easy to misconstrue a lot of times the shit that people say. And when you get into a setting, we can just talk about what you enjoy, and it's baseball and the team, the Red Sox. I think that's important, and that's what I really wish, that if there's anything that we can do with Red Sox Twitter to try to bring it back together, is do things like this, to where I think some fans will get a different perspective on people versus just it's hard to decipher tweets. So I had fun. Trust me, I love talking about the Red Sox. So this is fun.
It's been great to meet you, man. It's finally to put a face and a voice to your content. I'll say this: you're one of the good ones. I like your content. Ed Hand, Craig T. You guys are kind of my trinity for good stuff coming out of Red Sox Twitter, because there's just a lot of toxic agents on there, and it sucks. And you guys put out some what I would consider very optimistic but educated in your optimism, because you're not afraid to be critical. And just from my perspective, man, thanks for that. Thanks for always being engaging with me, man. I really appreciate it.
No, it's something that's over time. It's hard because like you want to try to please everybody. The one thing I found over the last year is you just have to, if you want people to follow and you want people to, no matter what you're doing, your podcast, you're writing something, whatever it might be. For me, it's relatability. And if somebody can relate to what you're saying and what you're talking about, you're going to win them, no matter whether it's on Twitter, whether it's Facebook, wherever the medium is that you're talking about. So that's what I've been trying to do over the last year. And I've been, fortunate to connect with a lot of really cool people, and I'm happy to keep doing these things because, I'm a true believer. It's about giving more than you take. And I think if you can figure out that balance, I don't care what you're talking about, you'll be successful with it, and people will appreciate what you're doing, and then vice versa.
Yeah, we're all one big Red Sox family. Sometimes it can be a little dysfunctional at times, but at the end of the day, we're all here to have fun, talk Red Sox with each other, and that's the fun of this. That's why we're doing a podcast, right? Talk Red Sox, have fun, hang out with people that we wouldn't normally hang out with. Like, for example, I live in Florida. Mr. Brown lives in Illinois. Mr. Taylor lives in San Antonio. We live nowhere near each other. We don't see each other in person. However, we do this podcast. We love talking to each other, just talking Red Sox. So that's the fun part of it.
Nope, this was cool. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Make sure to check out our last crazy off the Monstah because of the Stats and Shats that we did with Bacon. So check that out. Make sure to check out everything with Chris Henrique and Beyond the Monster. Check all that stuff out for Mr. Taylor, for Mr. Brown, and for Chris. Thanks for tuning in to Off the Monstah. My name is Derek, and we'll see you next time.